It's time for good energy, and I'm Dr. Julie, and welcome to Bodyful Day 351. We are embarking on an interesting series this week. We are talking about retirement. Now, it's not something that I have done, but we're going to talk about taking time off, switching jobs, becoming a different person. So we're going to talk about how to change in a life situation can affect your senses and how your senses can affect that change in life situation. In this case, we're talking about retirement. So today we're going to start with the sense of hearing. And as you know, we always start with, the basics. We're trying to review why this is something that we would look at and the type of information we can get out of it. So before we start, let's start with our basics. Go ahead and take a deep breath in and release. On this next deep breath in, you're going to expand in your belly, expand in your chest, and expand up into your sinuses. That is a very long breath, but it does move a lot of energy up through the system and back down. So take a deep breath in and release. And we are talking about retirement and the senses. If you haven't ever retired, even from a job, just to move to another job for a little bit, think of this as just any time you make a life change, a life switch, going from more energy to less energy, going from more stress to less stress. Think about this as a shift, going from more stressors in your life down to less stressors in your life. And think about how your sense of hearing may have changed. Go ahead and take a deep breath in and release. All right, to be honest, I wasn't quite sure I wanted to do this series. I knew I did, but I didn't. And I was like, how am I going to talk about this since I've never done it? But we have to use the healing equation as our basis. So energy to heal equals good energy in minus stressors. Energy to heal, energy to be retired, energy to be alone, energy to take on a new task equals good energy in minus stressors. And it is an unusual thought to think that you're coming out of the workforce having done the same thing for how many ever years you've been doing it, and you are now doing nothing that you are being paid to do. And that switch from being active and having to do work to not having to do work is really kind of stressful on the body. And the only thing I can liken it to from my perspective is finishing my dissertation and getting my PhD, because that was a full-time, life-encompassing, every spare minute that I had, I tried to put toward it as long as I could handle it. And I was working on it almost every night. It was just one of those things. I'd get done with whatever I had to do, and I'd start working on my dissertation. I'd get done with my classwork, I'd start working on my dissertation. For the last 2 years, I was working, last two? I can't remember if it was the last one or last two. I was working as a college professor, and I was finishing my dissertation. And so this process, I was working as a college instructor maybe, this process of working through the day at my normal stuff and then spending 3 hours writing we're talking lots of stress. And then to have that vanish once I finished was to have all of that stress taken away. And then you would think I would have all this energy to heal, because I would have so much less stress. I would have all sorts of good energy in. Sure, I would get healthy. I would feel better. Nope. So one of the features that is really bizarre about a life change, like going from working on a dissertation full-time while having another job and then leaving it, or working for your life and then leaving it and not doing anything, is that space that is no longer programmed, that stress which is no longer prepped for, it's almost like once that goes away, it kind of unravels throughout the rest of your body. Kind of goes up and down. And you have to unravel with it. So while you've been working, even if you were working at the most fantastic job ever, your body wound itself up in one direction or another. And you end up being a little twisted, and you end up here. And now the stress is gone, but now you have to unwind out of all of that before you can back to becoming human. And sometimes it is so much easier to shove more stuff in the stress area so that you don't have to unwind, that you're left with that year, 2 years, 3 years, post-work, post-dissertation, unwinding and going, I feel like crap. So this week is going to be about how to get through that unwinding phase, that life shift, that life change that you were expecting was going to be glorious and fantastic and retirement. And now you're left in this contorted, twisted, I'm untwisting, but I don't like the feeling of it, so let's go find something else to do. So this week is about trying to help you use your senses to kind of untwist from that. So with that in mind, let's talk about the sense of hearing. So when you are in your job, if you are an employee, you're used to hearing what you should be doing, what you should be told, even if you are, a mid-level manager. And in some sense, I have a lot of teachers. I am a teacher's kid. So I attract a lot of teachers, former teachers, to me because I kind of understand their stress level. And I even consider teachers like mid-level managers. They manage their employees. They are the mid-level manager, and then they are managed from the top down as well. So even if you are at the base and just cranking out stuff most of your life, you have somebody telling you what to do. If you are a mid-level manager, you have somebody telling you what to do, and then you also have information from the bottom up, so top down, bottom up. And then if you are at the top, you still have bottom up stuff. And honestly, even if you are an entrepreneur, there are still people telling you things about what you need to do with your business, and that would be the government. So clearing that out and saying it no longer exists, I don't have bottom up, top down conversations anymore. Your brain and your body is left to listen for other things. You're left to listen for other things. And sometimes we have a tendency to occupy ourselves with other things that can kind of add stress rather than pushing that stress away. So if you are used to following directions, it is hard to then say, okay, I'm going to do my own thing, because you don't have a framework to do it in. And so you look for other people to tell you what to do. So your sense of hearing almost comes to a point where you're listening for others rather than listening for the self. So one of the things you have to do when you are making a life shift, when you are all of a sudden pushing stressors out, is that you have to work back to listening to yourself rather than listening from the feedback from the bottom up people and from the top down people. You got to go back to listening to yourself, because before that you did listen to yourself, but you had to listen to yourself within a framework of what other people were saying. So retirement, or dropping a huge stressor like getting rid of a group or getting rid of a program that you're working on, requires you that stress to be gone, but then you also need to work on hearing what is going on for you. Understanding that you can and should now have the capacity to listen to yourself. What are the voices inside your head telling you? What is your body telling you? How is your sense of hearing grappling with this shift? Now, it's a little esoteric today because, of course, it's hearing, and as you know, I always hijack the first day for the metaphysical stuff. But this is sort of metaphysical hearing. What are you hearing about yourself now? Can you do what you want to do within a framework that is good for you? I don't know. All right. Well, let's see what happens with this week. As I said, wasn't quite sure I wanted to put this one out there, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. All right, let's finish this off. Take a deep breath in and release. Have a great day.